As a response to my last video on salvation as the core business of the church, or to put it another way, how do we turn crooks into Christians rather than trying to police all the world's problems, I was asked, how is salvation through Jesus? And this is a really interesting question. And I want to give two answers to that. The first is, in a sense, just look up and read the New Testament. It's all there. Need I say any more? The cross is seen as the kind of fulcrum point in which the grand cosmic narrative of our healing and restoration and transformation is done through this suffering servant that the prophet Isaiah foretold of 700 years before his birth. That the Old Testament itself seems to move towards this idea that one man will restore everything, not only Israel, but the way in which we have messed up the world, and that will put us right with God. So it's all there in the New Testament for anybody to read, and that's a big subject. And Jesus speaks of himself, for instance, in John's Gospel, as the way, the truth, and the life, the one who has individual access to God the Father, that no one has seen the Father except the Son, and that we can see the Father, we can be in fellowship, we can come round the table in a sense with God through his invitation. The second response I want to give to that question is through the idea of the church. Because sometimes we misunderstand the church as an incidental society, a sort of optional extra for Christians who like that sort of thing. Now, back in 2007 or 8, there was that financial crash, and apparently there was a moment where Alistair Darling and Gordon Brown, the then Prime Minister, had to make a snap decision in the middle of the night as to whether to guarantee, whether the government treasury funds would guarantee all the high street banks as they were on the precipice of a complete collapse. And they made a positive decision that otherwise would no doubt have meant that we'd have woken up to cash points not working, standing orders not being met, that the economy would have gone into a sort of meltdown. No doubt there could have been mass panic and chaos. So they guaranteed those banks. Well, in Matthew chapter 16, Jesus guarantees the church, this society, and it's the only guarantee that's ever been given like this, that it will be able to withstand the very gates of hell. In other words, it's guaranteed for all eternity. Even if it gets it wrong all the time, even if on earth we make a lousy job of spiritual community, we are guaranteed. We are the one boat in the harbour that doesn't have a hole in it. In 1,000 years' time, I suspect there isn't going to be a United Kingdom or a European Union or an NHS, and all those institutions that we cherish will have morphed into something else or be discontinued or frizzled out. The church, the kind of family of faith that makes up all the baptized, God has guaranteed. And who wouldn't want to belong to such a society which stretches from earth to heaven, which has a membership that spans across eternity, that to belong to is to belong not to just an institution that exists today with several billion followers, but also that belongs in the next life, that in a sense is like an iceberg where the majority of its presence is actually fully in God himself, and is truly can be described as Christ's body. So I think part of our salvation for me is that question of, do I want to belong to a society which is indestructible, and that society which has Jesus Christ as its head, and part of its kind of very kind of DNA, that he is the vine and we are the branches whose lifeblood kind of flows through us, and so salvation through Jesus is through that as well. So it's a question that one could explore in over and over again into all sorts of depths. It's a really exciting question. So please keep asking, and I'll try my best in my own way to fumble out some answers. Thank you very much.